Are we live? This thing is on. If you can hear me, say something in the chat. I believe we are live. I believe we are live. I believe we are live. Hey, Madeira. Man, people are here. They're showing up. Yes, this is so amazing. This is me in my humble studio / office / everything station. And I'm glad that you were able to join us. In less than 30 seconds, right? I'm going to probably ask if you want to come and say something to everyone who's participating. So are you ready for that? Or let me know how you're feeling in the chat. Okay, so it should be live everywhere. This is a multi-stream. So I am sitting here looking at this, trying to wait for a few more people that I want to show up. But how is everybody doing out there? I got you. Not a problem. How is everyone doing out there? Hopefully everyone is well. I am here today to talk about designing your life as a Black creative and what that means to me. And hopefully to engage others in these thoughts and see if maybe they can share with the rest, or maybe they just want to kind of listen and participate. So consider this an interactive session. It's not just going to be me lecturing. I feel like, sometimes when I want to share knowledge or just share resources with others, it always starts going very academic. And I think for this space, I definitely want it to be a little bit more open and organic and free, and not so heavy, not so academic, not so technical. I feel like, this shouldn't be considered like a lecture, but more of a discussion. You can even say a facilitated discussion. So first, I wanted to share something personal. Who do you think this is? Boop. Do you guys see this one right here? You should. Okay, there we go. I got it centered. This young lady right here is about 25 years old, and she was on an interesting path as a creative and finding new ways to embrace her creativity, and walking in circles with photographers and artists and painters and musicians and all kinds of interesting just creative energy. And at this particular moment in her life, when she agreed to participate as a amateur plus size model, this would have been in the early 2000s, and you didn't see a whole lot of there wasn't a whole lot of people that looked like me. Let's put it like that, especially in some of the circles I was walking in. But I was willing to take a risk, and especially with the natural hair, and then just being willing to be a little bit silly and fun and not even take myself so serious with the horns and the flower. Okay, I got a little extra cleavage showing there, but that's not the point. At this particular moment in time, I know it's a black and white, but if you guys could only feel what I felt at that moment, if you can only understand that this was in the middle of spring, it was actually chilly outside. And we were in a park in Baltimore, and people are driving by while we're doing this photo shoot, and they're looking at us strange. I mean, we were in a neighborhood that you don't see a lot of photography, but it was beautiful because they had tons of cherry blossoms blooming. daffodils were starting to come up, all kinds of stuff. And behind me, you can't really tell from the picture, there's a golf course in the middle of the city. So, so just to kind of paint the scene a little bit, we picked an area that was often overlooked and neglected, but we found beauty in this area, particularly in the springtime. And the temperature is probably about 50 degrees at the time that I'm laying on the ground here. And people are starting to show up, and most people had on sweaters and pullovers and things like that. But, we're in the middle of the city at a golf course. We found an area that we found to be aesthetically pleasing and perfect, and we decided to embrace that moment. And I think that's really what this session is all about, is, finding the beauty in things, even in your own life or your own surroundings, and being able to make something new and frame things from your own vision. I think, hey, Soraya, thanks for joining. I think I've come a long way since that venture, but I did learn a lot. And I think that one of my takeaways from just hanging with so many different people and not being afraid to take risks and being in shaping people's vision of areas that were originally designed to function one particular way, but then showing beauty and taking angles and just showing a different side or a different perspective. Maybe in future videos I'll show some more from my past, but I did a lot of like interesting things back at that time. And, it was really good for me at that time because I was still trying to find my way and find myself. Like I was still kind of in school, I was still trying to find or establish a career. And my life had taken so many different turns at that point, but just being able to be surrounded by the right people and who had alternative ideas about what was success and also what counts as creativity. I think growing up Black in the DC, Baltimore, Maryland, Virginia area, a lot of our journey is prescribed, right? I grew up with parents who wanted me to be a doctor, lawyer, something, STEM, but I was always creative. I played the clarinet for many years, as well as the trombone, and won a few awards. I got state level, and I wanted to pursue more of a career of a musician. So a lot of my creative energy, particularly in my youth, went to making and creating music and studying different periods of time. And it wasn't until I got to college and I started realizing that, I played in the pep band, but I started going in different directions and being pulled in different ways. But I remember somewhere around age 19, I had a conversation with one of the professors, and they said to me, if you're already into music, which is a type of creativity, have you ever considered computers? So I was like, why would I do that? I'm just being honest, y'all. I was like, why would I do that? Like computers, you have to remember at this particular time, this was the turn of the century. Y2K, all of this. I went to college to be a biochemist, right? And music was an outlet, a creative outlet for me, but I didn't understand the connections between the science and the arts. And I didn't understand, like my brain was already pre-wired to interpret, I can't even talk right now. Interpret, there we go. Interpret. My brain was being trained and molded through music to interpret, express, and translate symbols into language and art, which I didn't understand at the time, but it started to make sense. Like musicians and the way that their brain is trained and wired, you start to look and perceive uh, language and expression through symbols, right? And when you translate that into the computer world, it's easier for you to pick up a lot of the concepts, or math. People say math too. So like there's a connection between being creative as a musician and being a programmer. You can take that same person and flip them in different worlds, and it would being able to pick up on the aesthetics and understanding the symbols and reading the expressions is translatable. It's a translatable skill. But how often do we hear that? I feel like it wasn't my parents that told me that, and I was fortunate to have a resource nearby who brought it to my attention. But even at that time, at 19 years old, I wasn't thinking about that. So it wasn't until later, and through several other pushes and shoves from people in different communities, that I said, okay, I've tried this, I tried that. All right, let's give this computer thing a shot. This was after changing my major for the third or fourth time, taking many different classes and studies, and messing up a whole lot, okay? I took one computer class, and I did so well that the professor was like, at this point, I should have been a junior. I was still a sophomore because of my credit, and see the way that my credits and my grades were set up at the time, it was a mess. So I'm like a 21-year-old sophomore, which don't laugh at me. It happens, okay? And they're looking at me like, where did you come from? What? I was one of the top performing entry-level computer programmers in the class, and I was competing with people who were on a track and had gone to all kinds of professional programs, and they had all these extracurricular programs. They had never seen me in their community or their circle. I took one class, just walked in the room, and I aced it. And the professor was like, well, wait a minute, where did you come from? We need you on our side. So then began my journey, and many others, right? And along that way, I started realizing through my travels that there is a connection, and that connection between what you do, whether right or wrong, how you live your life, the people you meet, and learning how to transfer and apply your skill in itself is creative, right? So from biochemists who study French, by the way, because I thought I was going to be a French-speaking biochemist. This is what my parents said I was going to do. I got pretty far in French. Don't ask me to recite anything right now, though. This was a long time ago. But I got up to like, I guess would be a proficiency level of, I don't know if I would say I was fluent. I was almost fluent. Let's put it like that. Anyway, but I digress. That woman who then became this woman, who then became this woman, who then became this woman, man, there's a lot of transformations, right? So it's like, how do I go from French-speaking biochemist to this, to this? It's all about connections, right? I think a lot of times we think of creativity as a performing or an emotional response, and being able to on the fly make something happen, right? And that's one interpretation of creativity, but really the true beauty in creativity is that there's different modes of being creative, and you're not limited to just the arts, right? And there's different cognitive processes that happen that trigger different reactions and connections. So when we talk about being creative, we're not just talking about art. This was from another shoot. This is one of an old associate colleague, aspiring model friend of mine who we did a bunch of art. You probably are looking at this canvas and it's really hard to place the time or the age of when this was created. But I mean, it's interesting because like you see art like this now, it might be a little dated, but we were doing things like this in the early 2000s. And with a lot of our photography, we translated into a digital form of art that could be printed on canvas. I wasn't really in it for the money. I was just in it for the process and learning how to translate. I was learning how to translate between different worlds and how to apply these skills and make these connections. So I keep getting notifications. Next time I'm going to put do not disturb. That's what I said in my last video, right? I said, put your phone on do not disturb. And then here I forgot. My bad, y'all. So I'm back. So when you start realizing that anybody can be creative, you don't have to be born with a talent. You don't have to be born with a skill. You just have to know how to, you just have to know how to make connections between different things, right? And you have to give yourself time and space to really hone in on those different things and separate yourself sometimes from those things for a period of time before you return back to them. So in the 4 different modes of creativity, what I've learned is there's 2 modes that are very cognitive. So when you think about, for instance, someone who is kind of like a mad scientist, which I tend to go into that mode a lot. That's someone who is using a cognitive form of creativity, right? Which is brain power and things like that. And it really draws upon an existing body of knowledge, right? When you start going in that cognitive mode and you're deliberately trying thing after thing, experiment after experiment until you finally get a breakthrough. That's what I call mad scientist mode. It's a very cognitive, deliberate mode of creativity. But why don't people count that as being creative? But it is. I mean, trial and error, eventually learning from your mistakes, and eventually finding a way that works, that gets the results that you want. That is a form of creativity. Another type of cognitive creativity would be something cognitive and spontaneous. That's when you have like an aha moment. So you go from, I got my scared frog, all of a sudden one day goes, aha, I got it. Okay, I'm bending them. I've got it. This is cognitive, spontaneous creativity. He went from, I failed. You know what? He walked away from it. He slept on it. He came back to it. And then, I don't know, out of the blue, he has an aha moment. Cognitive, spontaneous, right? So those are the 2 common ways to generate creativity from a cognitive perspective. You can do it with a whole bunch of existing experience, body of knowledge, those are the academic words for that. Or you can just take that body of knowledge, sit on it, think about it for a second, or just not think about it at all, really. Just walk away, go to sleep, do something different, go make yourself something to eat, go on a trip, take a vacation. And when you come back, you all of a sudden be like, aha, I've got the answer. I know what to do. So, and then there's the spontaneous type, right? The spontaneous type of creativity is what we kind of tend to more associate it with, like the art, like the painting, like the drawing. Like I have some paintings here. I want to show you guys some stuff. You guys ready? All right. So remember, I kind of talked about some of my creative journey, but I didn't talk about others, right? So for me, I like to watercolor, guys, but not just watercolor. I also do a bunch of other things. It's not just being techie and taking pictures, there's also a lot of me is into art. Like, where did I put my art? So I had all this art right here. Listen, I had kids over here. We just did a kid swap, and they have rearranged my desk. But what I was going to show you was some art. So it looks like instead of showing my own art, I'll just be showing the art that I've done with children who have raided my desk. What we do here? Origami. So, like, doing something spontaneous and random. This is, I know it doesn't look like much. Now, what does it look like? You don't know yet? Well, we're going to flip it around and maybe it'll have more of a resemblance. It's supposed to be a tiger. Or no. What's yellow with spots? Who knows? But, like, making things is where I'm going with this. You know, applying your creativity. Okay, if I stand back a little bit, you can see the ears. Well, it was hand delivered to me by a 7-year-old in a origami envelope because they just learned origami for the first time and we were going ham. But I was going to show some wonderful watercolor. Apparently, they have taken and relocated that because it's all about origami now. So that's what we're doing, origami. So spontaneous creativity. You know, part of it was cognitive because it was the process of learning all the steps and the different folds. But then it got fun and creative. And then they just decided, okay, well, we're not reading this book anymore. We're just going to apply our knowledge and start doing creative things and make our own creatures. We're going to make our own thing and we're going to deliver it to the world. They even took it a step further and made an origami zoo. And this is a ticket to the origami zoo. And it's, I said I went to a 10 plus 2. So being able to retreat into a comfortable space and time where you can play and just invent things is part of creativity. That's the spontaneous part of creativity, right? So people that sing, you know, that's a type of emotional, spontaneous creativity, right? So you have your cognitive creativity and then you have your emotional. I think I said spontaneous, but spontaneous is like how. The type would be emotional. So like when we think of like painting, singing, making, expressing yourself through creativity, that's usually the traditional way. You're talking about an emotional mode of creativity, right? And then there's spontaneous, which is making an animal zoo out of paper, okay? Or then there's the expression, like performative piece too, more deliberate, when you want to actually sing a song or make up a song, you know, a song that you wrote, poetry, writing, you know, things like that. Those are different types of emotional creativity. And some people are like, I want to be a writer, but I can't write, or I don't know what to write about. And then some people are like, I always want to be a painter, but you know, I don't know what to paint. And I'm like, well, when I hear things like that, I'm just like, it sounds like you need some inspiration. And there's lots of ways to be inspired. And my recommendation always is to first change your environment, take a vacation, take a trip, go and do something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone for a little bit and just kind of observe. And then maybe engage in that world and start thinking to yourself, what about this experience can you take away and bring back with you into your own creative process, whether that's cognitive or emotional, whether it's cognitive, spontaneous, deliberate, or emotional, spontaneous, and deliberate. And like for us, going back to this story, you would never believe that across the street from me, where the cameraman is standing, there were row houses. Yeah, like we were able to frame a scene and change our environment from our own vision. But this, if I was to go back to this place now, this location now, it doesn't look anything like this anymore. I mean, it's been gentrified, but whatever. I mean, things don't always stay in time, but we were able to capture that moment here in a series of photography. Like I had a bunch of them, but so right now, who wants to be brave to come and join the discussion and talk about how they are creative and how they use creativity to transform their world and their life? Soraya, would you be interested in coming up? Because if so, I'm going to bring you up here. I'm going to see if I can bring Soraya up here. Yay, Soraya is down. Sweet. So, okay, I think I have to refresh my screen. All right, reload. All right, let me see if I can just invite you this way. No, that's ask a question. Soraya is down. Okay, I refreshed. Invite on screen. Registered. Okay, so I'm gonna bring Soraya up here as soon as I figure out. There we go. Soraya. Why did it say you're not live? All right, hold on. Let's go this way. I'm gonna do it through my phone. I'm broadcasting from my phone. I wanted to try something because the camera on my phone is more up to date than Soraya. It's telling me I can't bring you up because you're not registered. Oh, there you are. It says you're not live for some reason. I don't know what's going on with that. I see you. It says you're not live, but maybe you can just chat along and engage that way. So Soraya, tell me, we got a few minutes. What kind of creative are you? Let everybody know, and I'll see if I can repeat while I figure out how to bring you up here. Invite guests. What kind of creative are you? And if you have any questions, you can also ask me a question and I'll try to answer it in the question queue. And if you haven't already, there's a poll to kind of talk about what kind of creative are you? I thought it'd be fun if everyone kind of participated so you can kind of see like what people consider themselves as far as being creative. So if you want, go ahead and fill out the poll and ask some questions. We got about 5 minutes left of this stream. And it's all about just being creative and fun and having discussion and just kind of exploring the different modes. And it looks like Soraya does have some info for us. She talks about being a mixture of the different types of creativities we talked about. She says sometimes it's cognitive creativity, sometimes it's spontaneous. Yeah, sometimes you're being deliberate and you're very focused on the technical side of how to make something happen. I could see that. For sure. And then, do you ever feel like, Soraya, that you ever get a chance just to have fun and just to be creative and just out of the blue, just make something happen or paint or sing or just be silly and fun, especially with children around, because they bring out a lot of spontaneous creativity to the table, right? So I think I'm going to end the session in a few minutes, in 2 minutes, because I'll probably be cut off anyway. But I think the biggest takeaways about designing your life as a Black creative is that creativity is all around you and it's within yourself. And it's really about how you apply your skills and make connections that are translatable between what you know and what you don't know and what you're willing to know. And sometimes that comes from learning and going through a more traditional route of learning. And sometimes it's just a matter of just changing your environment, changing your circle, meeting new people, figuring out how they did something. And before you know it, you'll have a scared frog aha moment. And then you can really unleash your creativity. So I got here from a series of aha moments. And I know anyone out there who's gone through, has been using creativity in their life to really change the way they perceive the world or interact or even make things or products. I'm sure they got a story. And there's a whole lot more to the story and things that I can share. So Soraya definitely participated. So it looks like I gotta go. And see you later. Bye-bye.